Okay, welcome back to the second video on polynomials. So today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting polynomials. So the first thing I want you to think about is, and we all have probably heard of this before, are called like terms. And I want to demonstrate this when I add and subtract my polynomials. So let's think about this. Let's say you had 3x plus 4 in parentheses plus, say, 7x plus 6. Now, with the addition symbol, there's two ways I'm going to explain this. One is you can, what I was always taught was to underline each of the like terms, in this case 3x and 7x, and then underline twice the number. So then all I'm going to do is I'm going to add these up, and I'm going to say 3x plus 7x is 10x, and 4 plus 6 is 10. Another way is called the stacking method, and that's when I'm still using the same problem, but now what I'm doing is I'm stacking. Since this is addition, all I'm doing is I'm putting the 7x under here, the 6 under the 4, and my end result is 10x plus 10. And notice it's the same thing that I got from my method of underlining them. Let's try another one. Let's do 4x squared minus 3x plus 2. And we're going to add them to, say, negative 5x squared minus 4x plus 7. So it doesn't matter either method you use. I always like using the underline method. So that means I'm going to look at my x squareds. I'm going to also look at my x's. I'm going to put 2 underlines there. And then finally, my numbers, and I'm putting 3 underlines. So I'm going to take this 4, subtract 5. So by doing that, you get a negative 1 or a negative x squared. I'm going to do a negative 3 plus a negative 4. So think about two negatives when you add them. If you owe me $3, I'm going to put it here at the side, owe me $4. How much do you owe me? You owe me $7. So it'll be negative 7x. And finally, 2 plus 7 is 9. And finally, sometimes we'll put maybe 3m squared plus 7. And we're going to add that to 4m squared minus 2m plus 10. So I'm still using my same rules. Is I'm going to underline once my squared. Now take a look at this. I do not have an m, but I have an m on the right side. So I'm going to underline that twice. And then my number 3 times. So now I'm going to say 3m squared plus 4m squared is 7m squared. Now I've only got one m in it, so I'm going to keep it as negative or minus 2m. And finally, 7 plus 10 is 17. Now let's look at subtraction. Subtraction is basically the same as addition, except you're going to subtract. So let's start off with a really basic one. 7n squared minus 4n plus 5. And I'm going to subtract. Let's do a negative 2n squared, a plus 4n, and then let's do a minus 5. So now this is going to show you several ways where we could try to trick you. So what I always like to do is I'm going to distribute this negative sign. So what I mean by this is you could treat that as a negative 1, but what I'm going to do is leave my 7n squared minus 4n plus 5. But now what I want to do is I'm going to say negative 1 times negative 2 is a plus 2n squared. A negative 1 times a 4 is a negative 4n. And finally, a negative 1 times a negative 5 is a plus 5. So now I'm going to go back and I want to underline my n squares twice for my n's and 3 times for my number. Now I've got 7 plus 2 is 9n squared. Now take a look at this. Common mistake would be making that a 0, but no. What you want to do is make that a minus 8n, and then I got a plus 5 and another plus 5 to make that a plus 10. So we can throw a lot of different rules and tricks at you, but it's understanding to attack it in piece by piece instead of by a whole. So I'm going to do one more or two more of these. I'm going to do one with decimals. So you have 0.8 m squared plus 1.1 m minus 2. And I'm going to subtract 0.4 m squared plus 1.3 m. So I'm going to leave this as 0.8 m squared plus 1.1 m minus 2. But then when I subtract, that is like a negative 1. So negative 1 times 0.4 is negative 0.4 m squared. Negative 1 times 1.3 is minus 1.3 m. Now, instead of underlining, I'm going to just do the stacking method because some of us may like the stacking method. So I'm going to take this m squared and I'm going to put it right under it. So 0.4 m squared, a minus 1.3 m, and I don't have anything with my number. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to carry this out. 8 minus 0.4 is 0.4 m squared. 1.1 minus 1.3 is a minus 0.2 m. And I'm going to just bring this minus 2 down. And my final example from adding and subtracting polynomials is I'm going to take 1/5 n squared minus 1/6 n. And what I want to do is I'm going to subtract negative 7/30 n squared plus 1/12 n minus 11/30. Now I know this involves fractions, but what we want to do is we want to go ahead and I'm going to distribute that negative sign to everyone in the second set of parentheses. So that turns into a plus 7/30 n squared minus 1/12 n plus 11/30. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my n squares. So that's a 1/5. So this is my n squared. 1/5 plus 7/30. So in this case, I need to find the common denominator. Well, 5 goes into 36 times. So I'm going to multiply the 5 by 6. Then I have to multiply the top by 6. So that gives me 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. Add my 7/30, and I get 13/30 n squared. Next, I'm looking at my n. So my n is going to be negative 1/6 and a negative 1/12. So I need to multiply my 6 by 2 to make this in the equivalence of the fraction, negative 2/12 minus 1/12. And this comes out to be negative 3/12 n squared. And finally, I just have my (11/30). Now notice one thing before I conclude this lesson. Let's take a look at your 3/12. That can reduce to 1/4, or in this case, negative 1/4 n squared. So my final result is right here. 13/30 n squared minus 1/4. That should be n, not n squared. That should be n. And then finally my 11/30. That concludes this lesson on polynomials. Thank you for listening.